Previous guest, first question.
Are we rolling?
We're rolling.
Oh, shit. Okay. What was your biggest career regret, if you have one? And how could you have changed it? This is a good question. My biggest, first of all, I'm really happy to be here. I just want to tell you that.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking your time to come down.
Biggest regret was walking away from the fire department after almost 14 years. I loved doing the job. But I think that the culture for me was I just finally had had enough. I mean, there's the calls you go on and everything, but for me, I wasn't happy coming into work. In fact, I've dreaded going into work in the last few years. And I was actually on the phone. I was off-duty recovering from a double hernia operation, and I called my mom, and I was going to talk to her I was going to say I need to break up with my girlfriend. But what came out of my mouth was, I need to quit this job. And she said, why don't you then? I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't quit the fire department, But it got me thinking, and I thought, and I had been thinking already that I was not happy, and it's that kind of, and also I got into the job much later. At 41 as a firefighter. So for me, it was like, well, do I just do this until I cease to exist? Because that's all I was doing, is kind of existing. Or do I see what God's plan is for me, or whoever's up there guiding things. And so I've just kind of had this thing in my life where when it's time to move on, I just jump, make my wings on the way down. And, so that would be my biggest regret. How to change it? I'm actually involved in doing that right now. I just did a TEDx that should be coming out soon, TEDx talk in Nova Scotia called Argyle Street, where I'm talking about basically the silent epidemic of first responder suicide. And I have another TEDx talk coming up about really the same subject, because I lost several friends now, as we all have. I kind of survived my own hitting bottom and clawing my way back up. But more importantly than that, I've met other people, survivors, that have been down that low and survived, and their stories, they're incredible. They're incredible people. They really got into this job because they wanted to help people. And somewhere along the way, I'm sure always wanted to help people, but that whole thing changed and they spiraled down for whatever reason. So that's how I'm, what I'm doing right now to
Trying
change
to give back.
to give back. Exactly. So, I don't know how that's what I'm talking about in the talk, sorry, is changing really the way that we do things, the way we look at what toughness means and that kind of thing, and how we can support each other better, because we are, in my mind, we're first responders, and we make a commitment, we take an oath to serve the citizens and everything. But I was just researching this on the internet, and I couldn't find an oath other than maybe the special forces and stuff, where it calls for or makes us, where we promise to look out for each other on our team. And I think that's really important and something that is missed, because that just allows the culture to just be all masculine, with no humanity. So there's just been researching this whole thing. I actually talked to the psychiatrist for the LAFD, and she was telling me that it's called MCC now, masculine competitive culture, something like that. And you can see the it's almost like designed to destroy us as human beings, whereas a culture of brotherhood, I mean, you can get into the science and all that stuff, the cortisol that produces at high levels all the time, horrible diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, depression, PTSD, all that kind of stuff. Whereas where we have a brotherhood, where we're really supporting each other, I'm not talking about, mamby-pamby, we got to do our job, obviously, but we need to take care of each other. And so much of the time we're just hammering each other to, because that's what we know, to say, we keep reaffirming that we're tough, in that way. It's a lot tougher to say something human around in the group and, and then they just, there goes the oddball, but so that's what I'd like to get back into the community, how I think we can change, to start seeing that as a strength rather than a weakness.
What jumps out at me, and when you were saying that I was thinking about, you talked about, we're first responders, but we never first respond ourselves.
Yeah.
We always defer. And the other thing is, and this is not just in the first responder community, I am sure this is in the veteran community as well.
Yeah.
When we're on the line and it's time as a unit to perform, we are each other's brother.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. 100%. You don't have to have it in writing. It's just given. But when we come off the line and we're down, we are the worst family in the world. We feed on each other like nobody's business. And so it is kind of funny that we unofficially refer to it as a brotherhood, a sisterhood. And yes, when the chips are down and it's time to go, we will be there.
Yeah.
But boy, when we come off the line and things quiet down, you're either the meal or you're feasting.
Right. Yeah, it's true. You almost I'm writing this next talk right now. You've literally described almost the whole beginning of this talk. So it's really great to get that confirmation. It's been really difficult for me to get, because I only have my experience, and I don't want to be, I'm not a victim, and I don't have no blame. But now that I've seen, the amount of suicides and things, and people still struggling and living in depression, just barely hanging on, I got to do something. So
that moment when you were recovering from the double hernia surgery and you called your mom, you were 14 years in at that point? How many years in?
I'd had 6 years as a paramedic, 13 on the fire department.
And that moment when you told her, hey, I think I need to quit this job, how long had it actually been bubbling under the surface for you?
I remember about 2011 and 12, being on that floor under the engine, polishing, cleaning the painted parts under the engine, thinking that, like, is this it? That was, and I left in 2017. So, and there was there was an incident, a collective incident over time at a certain station, I think, that culminated in the thing that really just broke my spirit, broke my trust in my leaders, just made me disgusted. And, we get into this, you assume that there's a high moral character that we're adhering to in this job. And when you see people not adhering to that, especially your leaders, direct leaders, people that have your lives in their hands, it's a moral injury. And I've just learned about this. And I think that type of moral injury over and over again, and it has a lot to do with this culture and the way that we behave towards each other, that we suck it up, yeah, but how long can you do that for? And what is that doing to your body and your mind and your relationship with your family and your loved ones and your relationship with your patients that you go on? Or, the guys that something happens with the other cops that you're with, or me with the other firemen, sometimes that just informs how you're going to treat that person, the next person you go on. And you may treat them like shit, and that's another moral injury. You find yourself going, what am I doing? How did I stoop so low to be treating this person this way that's called me for help? So the job of being a paramedic, of being a fireman was incredible. But the brotherhood, that's, I think, one of the things that was so important in my life, because the way I found it for the first time, something I was kind of chasing for years and years. And then, the sacrifice and struggle that it takes to completely change careers. Like I said, I was 41, figure complete sea change, 180 degrees. I went from acting to, being a EMT and, that whole thing. It's a big change. And, getting into it, I'm thinking, well, if I make it through, if I get through the fire and get through the gauntlet, then I'm going to be accepted into that brotherhood. Just like on football, you make the starting team, through struggle and sacrifice, and you're part of an exclusive unit of people that you've earned your way to get there. And then you find out that there's no brotherhood. In fact, it's like you said, dog eat dog. And it's so hard for me to say that, because I don't want to come off being a victim or blaming or whining about they were mean to me or something like that. It's the way it is. And again, I had a choice. So many people, even I didn't realize I had a choice. My mother had to tell me, I was like, yeah, there is a choice. I don't have to stay here for the rest of my life if I'm miserable. I can do something else.
That's not a component, though, of these careers.
What?
Most, in the sense that when you start in these careers, the conversations you rarely or never have with anybody is, hey, if you're not digging this, what else are you thinking about doing? Every one of us is, in a weird way, conditioned to, man, we signed on that dotted line.
Yeah.
We'll check back when we're eligible to retire.
Exactly. I mean, they didn't, I had, like, what do you mean? What are you going to do? I told them I was going to go be a songwriter. I had a song that I wrote about coming home. It's not the transition, but it's the transition from coming home from being on duty to, going home, and that time, that drive home.
But that just highlights it right there. You told somebody like, hey, this ain't working for me anymore. I think I'm going to pull away. And you didn't get support. Like, hey, man, good on you. If this ain't working, I wish you all the best. It's the hell you leaving for?
Yeah.
Because nobody looks at it as you don't leave before it's time.
Yeah.
That's just the culture.
Yeah. Well, another thing is, I told my captain when I came back, I just had this grin from ear to ear, and they're like, okay, they called me in the front office. What's going on? I'm like, I'm out. I'm leaving. What are you talking about? I said, yeah, I just decided I'm gonna go. That was 6 months before I left. Picked a time, and then I had my exit interview, and the chief, when I came in, it was very tense. My captains were in there, the chief was in there, and I was thinking, why is everybody so tense? And to me, I was feeling like, oh, they think I'm gonna like out them or something like that. And so she said, have a seat, basically, why are you leaving? Is there anything I can do to change your mind? Well, this was either the day of or the day before I left. And I just said, no, it's just my time. I just want to pursue the music and yada, yada.
You're not the only one to experience that, but that always made me wonder, why wait until the very last day, the very last interview to go, is there anything that we could do that would make you want to stay?
Right.
Why not ask me that 3 months ago, when I dropped my official paperwork that said I'm out X date?
Yeah. So he asked me, is there anything we can do? And I was like, no. In fact, with the captains I have right now and the crew I have, I would stay, just for them. It's just my time, And I never would have said anything different. Like, I'm depressed or I hate coming here or something like that. I hate coming there, but I just was not happy. So anyway, told them, no, just my time to leave, So as I've been writing this next talk, I've been calling some different people, and the chief and I have actually stayed in touch kind of through Facebook and stuff like that. And I called him, we had a great talk, and I asked him about that. I said, why, how do you let a guy that you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think it's $180,000 just for the rookie for a first year. So that's just the first year. I was on 14. So, and almost 20 years of paramedic experience, the experience as a firefighter, having trained interns, having trained rookies, having all that stuff. You're just going to let them walk out the door? So when I talked to the chief, he said, I found out that day. And my biggest regret was that I couldn't change her mind. But I just had to say, hey, well, he's got his path he's going to roll with, and I got to support him in that. So I was thinking something completely I thought he'd known this whole time. He didn't know.
Hey, real quick, let's talk surfing and bourbon. The Pendleton Surf Club's all-military surf contest is happening October 9th through the 12th at Church Surf Break on Camp Pendleton. Whether you ride a longboard or a shortboard, if you're active duty, a veteran, or a military spouse, this is your chance to paddle out, compete, and connect. It's 4 days of nonstop action, pro-level judging, raffles, giveaways, and shared stoke with your crew on the sand. Your registration includes meals, contest swag, and the chance to take home the trophy. Spots are limited, and registration closes October 1st, so secure your place now at PendletonSurfClub.com. And for those whose ears perked up when I said bourbon, Pendleton Surf Club has released Board Shack Bourbon, crafted to celebrate the stories, the service, and the surf. Every penny from every bottle sold funds the event and supports the surfers. So even if you don't surf, you can support the event and enjoy some good bourbon. Grab your board, get your bottle, and help give back to military members and veterans. Go check out PendletonSurfClub.com.
This is part of the problem. You've got a guy, even if I'm the worst firefighter paramedic in the world, I've got all this experience. They put all this money into me. And at the end of the day, I'm a body filling the seat. And that's what they need, a body filling the seat. They don't care who it is as long as there's somebody in that seat.
And this was the captain that you directly worked for?
This is the chief. He was, I think, the AC then, but he was stationed at our station. So we interacted quite a bit. And so again, he was at our station, could have been told. I'm not taking away from anybody, but this is kind of the way that we do. It's because it's the culture. You wouldn't think to go, what can we do, or why to really have that conversation? Because that means you might have to look at what you're doing. If I really tell you the reasons that I'm leaving, and then what can you do? Well, that might require you to make some changes in things. But at that point, honestly, it was, I needed to go heal, and I couldn't do it there.
Playing a little bit of the man side of, so to speak. I'm playing the devil's advocate from the other side of the house. Was there ever a point where you went and just knocked on that chief's office and goes, hey, you got 2 minutes? I just want to talk for a couple.
Would never have considered it. Would never have.
But that also goes back to the culture. If that's
chief, what I'm saying.
If that chief didn't make it feel in that station house like you could come knock on my door if you've got an issue and we'll talk it out. But then at the end goes, man, how did you not know that? And I'm maybe even asking this rhetorically, but how would a chief of a station not know that you dropped papers to leave before the day of your exit interview?
Well, it's so bizarre that they have no system for that. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody walks away from the fire department.
Right.
So they're all going, are you retiring? Are you resigning? What? Nobody, even the downtown, they're like, well, what do you call it? I don't know. What do you call it? So, but you're right. It all has to do with the culture, of this, we don't know what to do, and we're certainly not going to ask, because that might open up some things that we don't want to know or talk about. So,
well, that goes back to personal pride almost. It's like, I'm not going to ask, because then it makes it look like I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, well, and it is part of this culture, and this is the thing. And by the way, what I wanted to say about that was, I've always felt with both of the captains that I worked with at that station, the last captains that I walked with, and the chief, I would have felt comfortable walking into that door. My mindset at that time was, you don't talk to the chief. You handle it on the app floor.
Got it.
So that goes way beyond my pay grade.
Got it. Let's take you back, though, so we can get the full scope of the picture. Where were you born? Where's hometown? Where'd you grow up?
Okay. I grew up, I grew up in west side of LA, Santa Monica, west side. Had a little bit of a different kind of thing. I actually grew up, especially in the teenagers in the Palisades. I went to Pali High. All my friends lost all their houses and stuff just recently. That was totally bizarre. But my mother was an actress, at a certain fame level. She was working. Well, when I turned 4 years old, she took my younger sister. I had 3 older brothers that were 6, 8, and 10 years older. So they were kind of their own group. My younger sister, my mom took her, and they were just gone. My dad was this gnarly, scary dude that would just show up, and lay down the law. And so,
same mother and father for all brothers and sisters?
Yes, for all 5.
Just weird little gaps of
well, there was that 3, and I think at that point their relationship was so bad. I think my mom might have had a miscarriage somewhere in that 6-year period. I've always thought that she just wanted to have a girl, and I don't say this in a victim way again, but the way I've looked at it, she took my sister and bailed, to save her life probably. And I remember this so well. She was driving me to kindergarten one day. I was 4 years old. She said, I'm leaving and I'm taking Dinah on wherever she was going. And I was saying, take me with you. And I was crying, please take me with you. She's like, no, you're a boy, you have to stay. And I didn't see her for a long time after that. So that was kind of, the whole point of this is that I was on my own. I made my own rules. I got up and did things the way I wanted to do. There was no kind of supervision. And really got in a bad way in junior high school and stuff like that. And then football, I found football. My buddy was like, hey, you want to try this with me this year? I'm like, all right, whatever. I knew nothing about it. But being able, and the team that I was on, we had probably, let's say we had 60 guys. 56 of them were from Crenshaw or Inglewood, and I'm the surfer kid, and there's like 4 white guys on the team, the local guys. And so culturally, we're completely different. We're at an age where we hadn't been integrated yet and so, they ran the team and stuff. But through this, you got to hit people as hard as you could, and they put pads on, and just, and through that fire, you form these bonds. And we ended up playing at Crenshaw. We got into a brawl. The stands cleared on both sides, and I remember looking at Steve Rivers, him smiling at me, and we're playing their buddies that they've grown up the whole. So I was, but this is a brotherhood. This was a feeling like I'd never, like a love, and being cared for that I'd never experienced before.
Did you not start playing football till high school?
Mm-mm.
Had you ever played any sports before that?
Nothing. Like I'd skied, I'd surfed, I'd done individual kind of things, running around.
No organized sports. You weren't the little league kid.
No, God, no. I mean, I didn't. I always thought those were punks. Because they were all, their dads were always teaching them stuff, and but yeah. So if football was that, and then I ended up following that all the way to University of Colorado. I had a kidney injury. It just ended my career.
Walk on at Colorado, or did you get a scholarship?
I was a preferred walk-on.
What position did you play?
I was playing strong safety, but I had.
So you're slow.
So yeah, compared to those guys, yeah. But I had ruptured my kidney my senior year, and it turns out I have a horseshoe kidney, so I was hit in the front here where I shouldn't have anything, so it ruptured it. I was in ICU for like 6 weeks, and just they didn't know if it was going to live or die kind of thing. They told me football, absolutely cannot play football anymore. I was like, okay, thanks. So I went and played junior college.
And you listen to them.
Junior college for 2 years. I was on the starting lineup. There, did really well. We were 10-1 up in Monterey.
Where'd you go to JC?
Monterey Peninsula College. And then I got a preferred walk-on to Boulder. And we were in conditioning, and I met with
What
the
year
doctor.
is this?
This was 85.
Okay.
85, yeah. So a meeting with the doctor, and I had mentioned, they said, head of medical, they said ruptured kidney, horseshoe kidney. He goes, shh, tell me about this. And ended up going through for 3 weeks all these tests, and you had 5 specialists, urologists, and all these people looking at it. And I don't know, one of the highest moments of my life was the head coach. It was McCarthy, his first year. He came to me, had me in his office personally. He said, I know what's going on with you. Really love the way you're working out there. And if there's any way you can be on this team, I got you. And that was kind of unheard of, because he didn't talk to the players, the coaches, the other two. So, the doctor finally came in one day and went in to meet him. And you could see when you walk in, it's all partitioned, and the partitions have glass on top so you can see all the way. And I saw the doctor and the coach. And I just knew right away, man. I knew it was over. So, so just kind of drifted for a few years. I got into acting, which is something I thought I'm never going to be an actor because I don't want to be associated with my mother and think, always wonder if I did it because of her or because of me. So, I had to do it, So I auditioned for a school in New York, kind of like Juilliard. It's called Circle in the Square, to get classically trained. I really wanted to do theater and live stuff.
Was it one of those things where you'd always kind of had the interest into it?
Never.
Because of no pun intended, the drama with your mom, you just didn't explore it?
Oh, it was never even on the radar because I just felt, the Sheen brothers were coming up and I'd watch their father. And my feeling was like, oh, well, I know how they got their career. And then all these kids of actors, that's what I think. So if somebody's looking at me, I don't want them thinking that I got the job through nepotism or whatever. So that was important for me, for my own morality and just for me. In fact, I ended up getting a soap opera, which is, I never wanted to do soap operas. I didn't audition. And then I finally auditioned.
Did you end up going to school in New York?
I did, yeah. I went for, I got into that, and then they got me into the professional program. I got into that through them. So this is a 2-year program. And in the middle of that, I got a play at the Amundsen Theater here in Los Angeles, with like Dick Van Patten, Michael Learned, and Rue McClanahan. I mean, all-star cast, Jennifer Jason Leigh. And in the school was like, hey, you're ready, man, go. And so I went, I did that. While I was in rehearsals for that, my brother died in New York alone. He was on drugs. I mean, he battled drugs as long as I can remember. And so once the play ended, there was just kind of this, I don't know, I was bartending and just getting messed up and stuff. But then I got back into acting, and then that's when I went back to New York and got in soap opera, and something I never wanted to do. And I'd always actually been ashamed of my whole life until I realized I'd just done this talk in Nova Scotia, the TEDx talk. And one of the other speakers gave me the sticker from his book that says, you put on your mirror, it says, I'm proud of you, for something like that. Well, I didn't get the sticker, but I wanted to tell him the next day that I'd looked at it and done that. So I went to the mirror and said, I'm proud of you. And it was the first time in my life where I thought about the soap opera, and I went, you know what? I'm proud of you for doing that. And like, you accomplished something many other people don't, out of thousands of people that wanted that job, and you kept it for 5.5 years. And a lot of people, new producer, I've seen, they just wipe out the cast and bring in a new one. So, so we're all the way up to kind of there.
And you said you stayed with the soap opera for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
By that point, are you in your mind committed to, all right, acting is what I'm doing for my future, or were you just kind of going through the motion, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, once you get a show like that, they've written you 6 weeks out, so it's very difficult to do other stuff. But I was doing theater at night. I'd do 25 pages of dialogue all day, and then go at night, either rehearsal or doing a play. So, but my marriage was not bueno, and I was not in a real good place, and I knew that it was going to end. I had 2 young kids. Like, my son was just born, and I didn't want to get stuck in New York. So you were living and taping in New York for the soap opera? Yeah. And so I moved our family back to LA. And there was a reason I went to New York. I just can't stand Hollywood and the whole thinking and the whole, you've got some failed actors going to judge whether you're going to be in this or not. And it was just so sickening. And then the marriage did fall apart. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to find something my kids can be proud of that can put a roof over our heads, give us security and stuff that we need. And I had a meeting actually with, my mom did this show called Facts of Life. She was like the second house mother. And one of the girls on the show was Minnie Cohn. So I became friends with her. So we met. We'd both had a career in the acting. And we had dinner to figure out, what am I going to do? What's next for me? The acting I don't want to do, especially here in LA. And so we went over everything, studied the military, the going back to school, this and that. And there was a long pause.
How old are you at this point?
36, 37, okay. Probably 37. So there's a long pause and she goes, is there anything? And I said, anything you've wanted to do. And at the same time I said, I had this remembrance of being a kid. I said, and we kind of laughed. There's something I've always wanted to do. And I said, it's like search and rescue, like putting yourself out there for other people. She's like, oh my God, you could be an EMT. My uncle owns a ambulance company. Maybe you could work for him or find out some stuff. And I'm like, well, what's an EMT? I didn't even know. So that set me on the path. I found a 3-week course at UCLA, got the EMT, went into ski patrol for 2 years, volunteered to see if this was something that I really dug.
Tahoe or Mammoth?
I was actually at Big Bear, Bear Mountain.
Okay.
And it's much better for trauma. Yeah, my buddy, guy I went to junior high school with, I saw him at the beach. He's like, yeah, man, he was doing the ski patrol and I didn't know what I was going to do with this license. And I loved skiing. I was a good skier. So, so I did that, volunteer for 2. And I mean, you want to get trauma and have calls where that's the place. Mammoth, of course, I would have loved. I've got to just be skiing the whole time. But this place, you got a lot of trauma and got to work.
We got to call for service. I got to finish my run first.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, how much fun is that? Bombing down the hill, it's just got to get there. So, yeah.
What actually caused you, though, to go from that to actually start considering the fire department?
In 1999, something happened in my family that pretty much exploded the family. And I just completely cut myself off from the acting world and got a job on it. I decided I want to be a paramedic. That's where I can make a little more money and a lot more difference. So I did my 6 months on the transport rigs as an EMT, got into paramedic school, the second class at Ventura. So it was like city college prices for like $300 plus the school books. And then I worked in Oxnard for a few years. Again, that town is like, that's everything you could possibly imagine. As much trauma and as much everything, overdoses and farm injuries and trains and gangs and everything. So great.
Oxnard Fire or EMT on an ambulance crew?
I worked for Gold Coast, which was the contracted ambulance company. So we'd meet fire. Fire was just BLS.
Right.
They didn't have any paramedic stuff or transport units. So, and that's how county works too. LA County, I think a lot of places do that. And I loved the job, being a paramedic and going out and doing the skills and all that stuff. But I noticed even in my first day as an intern, this guy was just trying to break me. He wasn't teaching me. I mean, I'd learned what I'd learned and I'm learning on the calls, but that was his intent. And there were a lot of those guys. So I kind of got a real that was from day one for me in the field. And he was famous for this. He'd always failed every single intern. I mean, I had his partners coming to me saying, hey, he wants me to document, this is, so they finally pulled me at the end out of that. But it was just, is that kind of thing where it's like, and then it was the same thing at the company. I mean, there were good people. I had friends and stuff like that, but it's that sort of culture where you got to tear somebody else down and this guy, he was that tall and, he had all those issues. And it's like, man. So anyway, I had 2 kids. This was everything. If I didn't pass this, then I was screwed. And I had one chance. So, it was whatever it takes. And then I had to really think about the fire department. I had been applying to different fire departments and stuff, and I thought, man, I don't know.
What was the reservation about actually switching over to an actual fire department?
I think, there was a lot. I mean, it was a big commitment. It was physical commitment. It's the hours that we worked, we were working like a 6-4 in Oxnard. So you had 4 day shifts and then 6 hours, something like that. So it was brutal. And it was and fire's a whole nother thing on top of that. So I wanted to be really clear that that's what I wanted to do before I made that decision and really went for it. But then once I did make the decision, I applied to different places. LA City was hands down where I wanted to be in the shit, and that's what I assumed it was. I knew it was hardcore. And I both, didn't see a need for that. And at the same time wanted to maybe prove myself or, that I could do it. But after years and years, it's just, dude, enough already. We're doing the job. You're good at your job. I'm good. You have your weaknesses. I have mine, or my strength, and we're a team, man.
I know you mentioned that kind of the final straw for you was an incident that happened at your last station house. But how far into the career are you already starting to feel like it's not really working for me? I mean, how soon into the career, if I didn't say that correctly?
Well, for a long time, it's just the way it is, and it's tough, right? So you get off your rookie thing and it's still, nobody talks to you and you got to prove yourself. It's like a football team or whatever. You got to prove yourself at each new place, new station. Yeah, that's fine. But it seemed to be like, that's just the way it was, especially at the larger places where you have a lot of like task force houses, you have a lot of members there. That's where it seems to be kind of more dog eat dog than at the smaller places where you can't quite get away with that as much. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to be on the truck. I wanted it again. That's where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be at a single engine house and sleep all day, or I didn't want to be on the engine. I wanted to be on the roof. I wanted to be on the truck. And so I put myself in those situations, but it took me a long time to realize that. I think it was really at that one station that I kind of mentioned where I really saw how dark it can get. When I was talking to the psychiatrist a few days ago, we were talking about this, and she said, well, I think you're seeing that as a personal attack and stuff. So I laid out a couple more things. She's like, okay, well, you've clearly seen the darkest side of the thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm just saying it. Yeah, not just me. I mean, what I saw, I've just watched other people being broken right in front of my eyes. Great people. For what? For nothing. That's kind of the extreme, but it's there. And more first responders are dying by suicide than are getting killed in the lethal. And a firefighter's 3 more times likely to die by suicide. So there's something wrong. And I've cared about the people that I've lost deeply in some cases. And in one case, I had an idea that they were not doing well. They called me for help, and I didn't respond. And 2 weeks later, they, took their life. And that's heavy, man. I know that it's, they're going through whatever, but at least I could have responded, But all I could say in my mind was suck it up. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, because that's all I was doing. That's the only way I was getting by. And so I think after that incident at that station, I went back downtown to the Hammer House, they call it, where this type of behavior, this tearing each other down, it's known for that. It was just to get out of that place, because I knew that I wasn't safe at that place anymore. Like literally, I had to leave. And that was really the only place, that or Skid Row. So back down there, I was raising, my kids were still young at that time, like 6 and maybe, 6 and 8 maybe. Maybe a little bit older, but I was raising them by myself at the time. And no, I'm sorry, they were at that time, they were probably young teenagers, like 12 and 14. But I still wanted to be close to home because, they're there a lot of times alone. So
did you ever consider going to a different organization?
Nope. No. But I think so. Now I'm down at this place downtown, and I just think it was just like, again, I was just existing. There was no joy in my job. And I think combined with kind of what happened with that station and this, is just, I ended up going to a single engine house just to get out of there, because I was just, enough already. And then I went to another station where I really wanted to be. And I mean, it was great. There was good guys there, but I was burnt out. I wasn't a happy camper.
Well, that's one of the unfortunate things I think about these careers is maybe if you had gotten into a better station house earlier, you might have been able to save your career. But what I don't think a lot of people realize is once you get past that tipping point, you mentioned, hey, I got to the station house that I really wanted. Sometimes that's not even enough.
It wasn't. No. That's why I say, like, I tried to look back. What happened? Where did it happen? And I really realized, I mean, something happened this last night. The captains had called me in and basically accused me of something that was completely false. I mean, 110% false. But I knew that the crew really didn't want me. The captain told me, he goes, we don't want you here. You work hard, you do all that, but you just don't fit here. And one of us is leaving, it's not going to be me. Cool, Cap, no problem. Thank you for telling me. But there was nowhere to go because these brownouts, only there's 2 other places, right? So I just tried to work harder and da-da-da-da-da, but they just kept amping it up until I finally got called in and accused of something that was, and not only that, but it was set up like an interrogation scene. They'd turned off all the other lights with one over the chair, and I'm facing the captain's desk. Sit down, we're going to talk to him. Yes, sir. What now? This was gnarly. He started accusing me of this stuff, and I realized it was bullshit, and I let him talk. Finally, he goes, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I go, Cap, I don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. He's like, his eyes just went like that. He leaned back in his chair. He knew that whatever rumors he heard were complete bullshit. And then he said, let's backtrack. And I know you've been trying to transfer out. I'm sure I can get into one of these other stations. Are we done here? He's like, yeah. So later that night, we had a structure fire call, little mini mansion, 2nd floor, just going like a bomb. Fire blowing out the windows. I'm tillering. We throw the ladder, go up the aerial. I'm first off, and it's Spanish tile roof, so I can't sound like we normally do to see if the roof is stable. So I'm out there cross country, basically the last thing you're supposed to do. But I'm leading the roof team out, and I look back and I see one of the guys, and I see the look on his face. And to me, it was like almost I looked back because I felt like almost a physical punch from behind. And I look back and I see this guy's face, and it was just, what I got from it was like, I hope he goes right through that roof. And I felt so hated. So I called in sick the next shift and showed up at the next station, never looked back there. But to be a fireman on a roof with that kind of fire underneath you and not feel like protected or that your crew's coming to get you, that's a gnarly feeling. And I'm sure as a cop, those things, happen and are way more profound. So
I don't want to say necessarily happens more frequently or more profound, because I'll tell you what, I can't equate a scenario per se. What, in a weird way, the level of danger of being on a roof in a fire, because the ability to literally fall through and into the fire is at the next step, potentially. So what you were experiencing, there's danger in all of our jobs. And I think this goes back to some of the jokes that I used to have with some of the firefighters that we would interact with. Because I tell them all the time, I was like, I'll dodge bullets all day long, relatively speaking. I ain't going into a building that's on fire. So for me, from my perspective, what you guys experienced always seems more dangerous than what I had to do.
Man, I'm so scared to carry a gun, or I couldn't even imagine going out there with a gun and dealing with bad guys that want to hurt you. I cannot imagine it.
It's weird how once we're into our careers, whatever we chose, what we perceive as dangerous, to us, it's not dangerous. It's just there's a way to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, we do our job, right?
But the outsider goes, man, that freaking building's on fire.
I know. It's like, what do you mean? Like and people will call me. I'll be on a hillside, at a brush fire or something, and hey, are you? They'll call them from New York. Are you okay? Just want to make sure you're okay. I'm like, yeah, dude. Just doing my job. We don't think we're going to die when we go into a fire every time. It's a job, and I'm sure policing is a job that you do. So, there are risks, and it's obviously there can be a lot of danger for sure in a lot of different ways. But I never felt like I was, going to die. I mean, you do take risks sometimes when it's worth it, but.
Between getting to that last station house, being off on the hernia injury, and talking to your mom, how long of a span was it? Or
so it was 6 months.
Were you at that last station house when you were out with the hernia?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I love the captains, love a lot of my crew. There's still some things that like you have with anybody, just those guys. But at that point, even one of them was just, I've had enough. Just had enough. But I will say that they're making some incredible strides right now. These new, I'm not exactly sure what you call it, psychologists or psychiatrists for the department. They're really being proactive. They're doing things like where you have a critical call, certain calls, I'm not sure what they are, but you might be able to take maybe a half hour, 45 minutes to take a shower, just get your head straight.
This October 28th and 29th, the Military Officers Association of America is bringing together 3,000 voices, military leaders, warfighters, veterans, and families at National Harbor in Maryland for their inaugural conference, Total Force Plus. This isn't just another military conference. It's a mission to advance solutions for our military and veteran community, including leadership development, quality of life, military transition, and maximizing the veterans' experience. It's all on the table. This is where the next generation of military solutions will be tackled, at the first and only military conference where people outrank everything. And because the mission is so important, MOAA is making attendance free for those who are currently serving, the spouses of those currently serving, and all federal employees within the DoD and VA. Secure your seat now, as tickets are limited and offered on a first-come, first-served basis. Visit TotalForcePlus.org to see if you qualify for your free ticket and to register for the conference.
I mean, I remember going on calls back to back till 3, 4, 5 in the day before we ever got a chance to eat, you know, anything. And so this is, and you know, I would look down on that. I would look down on those breaks and stuff because it is a tough job and we got to be tough to do it. And that was my mentality. But at the same time,
not trying to get all psychologist on you, but I think a lot of us strive for those super busy stations so that we don't have the downtime to listen to the noise between our ears.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Because if you don't have the time to process what you're dealing with, if you don't have the time to sit and think about that last baby not breathing call, that last horrific car accident where bodies are literally in half.
Yeah.
If you don't have the time to sit and listen to that noise between your ears, you don't have to deal with it.
And you don't even remember that body cut in half, you know, because you've been on
not immediately
10 other calls. Yeah, right. But then, and what about, you know, not necessarily childhood stuff, but stuff that you're still unresolved things.
Oh, and don't even open that door.
And then your family things or things also going on outside of work, you know, whether you're going through divorce or your kid's doing this or something, you know, that you can't talk about. You just got to be, you know, fit for duty. You got to be 100% ready to go. So, you know, there is an element of that too, but how do we find the times? I think if we just, like I said, we change the culture and to change the definition of toughness so that you got your partner or whatever in the car together, or you have that moment where you're wiping down the rigs and just go, man, that was fucked up today. You know, just to be able to say that. I've had captains tell me, I remember coming back, tailoring back from a call, the rookies up there were all on headsets and some horrific traffic or shooting or so, I don't remember what it was, but Rookie and I were talking about it and the captain, shut the fuck up, no puke talk on the rig. You know, and that was the feeling, especially in the LAFD. It's just you have your firefighters and you have your paramedics, and in the fire rig, you don't talk about anything medical. But that's starting to change, and it's ridiculous when you think that 90% of our calls have to do with trauma or medical or something like that, like 5% are fire. So,
well, here's my unofficial back end or front end, whatever you want to refer to it as, psychology experiment. These jobs require people who can address a situation, compartmentalize what they're doing, maintain their control, maintain their composure, and move on to the next one without completely melting down in the middle of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Who's best at doing that? A kid or a man or a woman who comes into these careers who's had poor life experiences and a lot of trauma leading into this career where they've learned to compartmentalize their life. And the way they deal with things is they don't say shit, they shove it down and they move on to the next thing. So what makes us, or what makes the best people for these careers, again, my unofficial opinion, are the people who come to these careers with a bunch of trauma. And then we pile more trauma on them because we've all worked with people who have come into these careers who had the absolute perfect life. They don't understand the complexities of what dealing with other people are like, what dealing with a stressful situation is like, because they were fortunate. They grew up in a very leave it to beaver lifestyle. And they're usually the ones that don't survive the initial onset of what these jobs require because they don't have, as weird as it sounds, the personal experience of compartmentalizing. The flip side to that, though, is we need to be better about people coming into these careers, not assuming that everybody coming into these careers has trauma and not assuming that everybody, just because they come into this career without trauma, can't perform. We need to get better on the front end, though. When you're a new firefighter, when you're a new paramedic, a new police officer, and you go to that horrendous call, if you've got the time, talk to somebody. Make it normal to go, hey, that was a shitty ass call. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you working in a busy house. You don't have the time for that shift. Maybe the first start of the next shift, captain circles everybody up. Hey, we had some really nasty calls yesterday. How's everybody doing? You know what? If you don't feel comfortable right now talking in the group, please, my door's right there.
Yeah.
But start that at the front end of people's careers.
Yeah. And honestly, it never would have occurred to me, just because that's just not what you do. You know? So it's not even a thought of should I, shouldn't I, or a choice. I wanted to mention something from earlier, though, that talking about being able to, I guess, do what we're talking. There's another guy that walked away after 14 years. And for him, he had been a firefighter, and then he became a paramedic also. They went to paramedic school. And the way his treatment, when he came back as a paramedic, all of a sudden they're like, you sit over there with the captains, you know, you're a paramedic. You're not with the firemen anymore and stuff. And, you know, it's busy. He's getting pounded. And this is a few years ago. But I guess they called him in on his way home after 4 days working straight and said, come back. And he's like, no. No. So he left, and apparently he wasn't going to ever get into fire. He already had another business he was doing, and they were telling him in his hometown, it's like, you should join that fire department. It's a really great place. And he's, no. But he did. He went through their tower, and he comes into work the first day, his first station, right? And he's ready. He's got all the shots ready. He's got his armor on, and he's ready for whatever's coming. Guy's like, hey, man, welcome to stations. Congratulations on getting to the tower. We're glad to have you. How do you like your coffee? Hey, here's where everything is. This is da-da-da. This is how we do things. And he said that this brotherhood there's no dichotomy between, they're all paramedics from the lowest firefighter to the chief. So that's not an issue. So I do think that takes a big piece out of the puzzle. But the brotherhood that they have there, he said the way that has transferred into patients, he said, let's take cardiac arrests. You try to get return of pulses, right? That's what you're trying to get, ROSC. And he said like the ratio from where he was, where it's a fire and paramedic and this kind of different culture, more macho culture as opposed to the brotherhood culture, they're making like 10-to-1 saves because of the, you know, they're working together actively. The competition part of it, I feel like the competition part is, okay, you come to a new station, you got to push, but you got to find out where their edge is, where their skills are and stuff like that. But at some point, you either make it or you don't. I guess this is why some people get shoved out of the station, or maybe one reason, but they probably never should have made it through the tower in the first place if they're not competent, you know. But they can handle the calls, they're not going to break down in the middle of everything, and their skills are good and they're good firefighters, then, you know, so that's all I'm saying is that there are places out there where we're doing it right, I think. And that's what I'm trying to do, is get this industry pointed. And you know what's so crazy? I'm not religious, but I've really felt God's influence in these last few months, in that my life almost has been set up for me to do this. You know, this acting career. You know, I'm learning all these lines, being able to spit them back out, writing. And then the experience that I had in the first responder world, it seems like all of it was designed for me to be here talking about it. And people were telling me, you have to talk about this. No way, not in a million years. But when I started to see that and meet people that had similar stories to mine, and people and the suicides that I've seen, and my own experience and their experiences, I'm like, I can't not talk about this, because I've been given these tools, you know, to do exactly this. So, you know,
here's the unfortunate thing when you talk about being a public speaker. If you had done everything you experienced, did a little bit of acting, went into the fire service, but there was no trauma or drama behind it, I hate to say this, it becomes a pretty boring speech. You get up on a stage and you go, Yeah, I grew up in an acting family, and so whether I used my influence or not, I got into acting. But then things kind of changed, so I went to the fire service, and then I did, my career in the fire service, and I heard people are like, okay, great. What we relate to, the majority of us, is that struggle, that strife that, man, I was doing this, not because I wanted to, but it was an option for me, and every time you hit a roadblock and get around it, that's what makes your story better.
Yeah. Well, what I'm really, and you just have to keep telling yourself this as you're writing, this is not about my story. It's not about what I want to say. This is about what they need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps me so much. But obviously putting your own story into it, this is a really difficult one because this has to do with culture and the way that we treat each other. So for me to talk about personal experiences, I don't know how to do that without sounding like a victim or sounding like I'm blaming somebody. So it's been a really difficult hurdle for me to write about this stuff because I'm not. I made my own choices. I healed myself. I did what I needed to do to heal. And I don't have any blame. And like I told that chief, no, I don't blame you. I have regret that I'm not still there. I would love to still be working there. But I'm so thankful that I'm not and that I got out and saved my own life. And I'm so grateful. I'm filled with purpose and really starting to make a difference. I mean, maybe not with first responders, but I've made a difference with civilians, we're literally saving people's lives from addiction and suicide to, living life fully now within the last 3 months and other people. So I think this is the work that I want to do is to give back and to lift people up, bring people together. We're so divided. We're so isolated. I was in the sauna last night. I played a little basketball. You can probably see on my face, I got a few dings, but I'm sitting in there and there's like 8 people and every single one of them's got headphones and they're facing into their phone. And I just went, wow, you guys can't hear a word I'm saying, can you? Let's talk some politics or religion, We don't talk about anything anymore. So
When was your last day as a firefighter or paramedic?
I think it was February 14th. So I think it was that love day, 2017.
And now here's the other side of the coin. You decided to walk away, but at the end of the day, you still got to put money in your pocket and survive. You talked about wanting to be a singer-songwriter, or at least that's what you told your chief when you were on your exit interview. Did you have anything lined up?
Yeah, I kind of had this idea and this song that I was going to work with. There's this thing about humans where when you make a change in your life, let's say you go somewhere, some retreat, and you have this huge change and realization and stuff, and you come back and you want to continue that, and maybe even affect the people around you, but nobody else around you, that world that you came from, does not want you to change. They want to pull you right back into that. And I got a lot of that, distressingly, from my own kids, from my girlfriend, and I think I just kind of started spiraling down. Also, I was going to do this video to make this video with this girl who I'd been in acting class with. She was amazing. And the day I walked out, I did a video of me for Instagram saying, hey, it was my last day at the station. And she saw it. She goes, if you ever want to I'm doing videos now, music videos. So I'm directing them if you want to do this. Well, she directed something I wrote for this acting class, which was amazing. And so, yeah, I couldn't wait. And it turned out, it ended up me saying, you're a disgusting human being and don't ever, ever call me again. Click. So things started to kind of spiral down. And I started, and I felt like a failure when I walked away from the fire department. I mean, I felt like, man, you just didn't have what it took. And I was so surprised, actually, when the chief, just the other day on the phone, he's like, well, we loved you. You're a great fireman. Oh, he said, you were a great fireman and an excellent paramedic. And I went, he had texted that to me. And And I said, when we talked, I was like, why would you say that? Yeah, I got standard or above on every one of my evaluations, but as far as I was concerned, I sucked. And maybe that happened from that station at some point, but if you get told you suck long enough, you start to believe it, And I was a damn good paramedic. I was a good firefighter. I didn't really care about firefighting that much, honestly, but I did care about, and I loved the USAR, doing all that stuff. It was fun. That was the fun stuff, and the paramedic thing was really what I love, dealing with people.
Once you actually stepped away, did you get anybody who maybe unexpectedly from still within the firehouse reach out to you privately like, man, I can't believe you had the guts to do that. I'm sitting on that fence also, or anything like that?
No, not right away. There was one guy, he was also a musician, a really good musician. At that same station I referred to, I ended up taking his spot. And I had known him 5 years earlier. I'd worked with him one day he was a brand new paramedic. He was like filled with life. He's like 18 years old, and we stopped by his house. He plays his piano at his parents' house, and I'm just, whoa. And cut to 6 years later, I left one station just because I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. Just to go somewhere else. I get to this station and I'm relieving him. I hadn't seen him. I heard he got hired there. I said, what happened? No. What did they do to you? Because he was just dead behind his eyes. He was stooped over and life was just gone out of this. The reason I remember this one is because I remember I was going through the divorce at that time. I remember looking over at him. He was driving and going, I wonder if it's possible for me to have that kind of joy in life again. And he has been, that moment was something I've reached for since then. So when I saw him that morning, I was just like, what? And I watched him get broken and broken by his supervisors. I mean, and there's nothing I could do. Like, we were both kind of in the same situation and I couldn't help. I just had to watch him, but watching his destruction. So you asked me if anybody called me. He said I was going to go to Nashville, was what people decided, or what I was telling people, which I was going to do. So he called me, he said, hey man, I'm in Nashville on tour. Let's get together, have a beer or whatever. I go, well, actually I didn't, I'm still in LA and and I kind of just said I forgot what it was, struggling a little bit. And I saw those dots that he was typing and what came out was, he said, I've contemplated suicide on multiple occasions. I'll never work in the field again. I think he's working some other aspect. But, there's so many of these guys and girls who have found a way to, because there's no way out, right? What we talked about earlier, they've found a way to keep going till they get to retirement, right? But it's like I'm good, they got those spears sticking out of them and we all see that they're broken and bleeding, and that's okay. So we'll lay off them because we know that they're broken now. So we don't need to break them anymore. But they're still limping, dragging that blood trail behind them like, yeah, I'm fine, man. We're all ignoring the elephant in the room that this guy is not okay, that has been broken. And
well, there's a significant reason why so many of us don't make it past about 5 years after retirement.
Right. So this is what I was going to say. So these people that are still, let me just get to retirement, right? Well, what then, man? And this is why I'm so happy to be here talking about this with you right now, because we don't even know. Like, how many, I'm talking to one of the engineers right now, this buddy of mine, and he gets these, I don't know, whatever, death reports. He's like, you won't believe how many of them are suicides. I talked to a guy another paramedic, guy I worked with a lot, not on the same, but we worked overtime a lot together. He was great guy, drummer, had a great career, started young, had mentors, he was well loved in the department. He's like, bro, I'm barely hanging on. Like it's all coming back. And so as far as the culture goes, that didn't really affect him too much, but just the calls alone and the stuff that he's witnessed and seen and the lack of purpose. I mean, that is the biggest thing probably of all, is lack of purpose. But that was the first conversation. That was about 2 years after I left. And we actually got to talk to each other. I'm talking to a first responder. I talked to one or two other, kind of told, but really not. But when he said he was hurting, I was like, fuck, dude, me too. I don't, this is, and so just by being able to talk to each other, you offload so much of that. And that's why I think in our culture, while we're on the job, we have to find a way to offload the stuff that we're carrying. Because you can say you're not carrying it. You're carrying it. You can't go to it and not be. It may not affect you right now, and there's calls that may be really gnarly that you don't really affect you, but there's other ones that maybe aren't that. It's something, maybe the way the mother, says, you can't stop thinking about it. You can't, it's with you, it lives in you. But
even the low level ones, when you really think about it, comparing it to the rest of society, the percentage of society that will never even experience some of the low level calls that we experience in our careers, that we write off as, oh, that was no big deal. That guy had a knife sticking out of the side of his neck or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to us, it's just call for service. It's a run.
It's hard to get perspective on that. My son rode out with us one day, and on the paramedic ambulance, and he got to see a few calls, but nothing calls.
To you,
and he goes,
felt
Dad,
like nothing.
This changed my life. I can't believe what you do every day. Like, I cannot believe this is what you do. It's like, that? Oh, okay. Never, but yeah, that was the first time I kind of got perspective of. And another time, my partner, I was one of those days where you just call after call after call, and we'd come from a couple really gnarly call. I don't know what it was, but we finally got our some sandwiches, and we're eating them cold now because we ordered them 5 hours ago. And we're eating them on the way back to the station. And he's like, most people can't do this. What? He goes, eat lunch after seeing that. Really? Yeah, you never occurred to me, Yeah, I was hungry. We'd say, what's the next call? I'm thinking about the training we got to get to whatever. And it didn't occur to me, it's just what you do, and it's not what we sign up for. But yeah, these are human beings we're dealing with. You can't not see that yourself in that, no matter who they are, right?
The rest of the world wouldn't be at a horrific death or horrific injury or whatever, and then the first thing afterwards, hey, we got 30 minutes. You want to go grab chow?
Yeah, right.
Because in our minds, we're thinking, shit, I got a small window where I can get some food right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
In your time after getting out, did you actually get into the music industry, or were you making money doing that aspect?
Yeah, for a little while. So really to me, I'd been in Nashville. I was recording there.
So did you leave the fire station or leave the fire department and go to Nashville?
No. Sorry. Oh. Let me go. Okay. This is after I'd left the soap opera. I was here in LA. Somebody heard my music. They flew me out to Nashville. I was doing this stuff. I just cut an album, and I was about to go on the road for it. And I was in Nashville, in Brentwood, outside the studio, and I was talking to my wife, and I knew it was over. And I knew that my life was about to change drastically. And I wasn't really happy with the music that we were doing. I didn't think it really had a hit, or I wasn't really quite baked yet. So I just kind of dumped that, and I went into the whole first responder.
Got it.
So for me, music was something I never really gave it 100%. And I don't like to leave things if I've known that I haven't. So for me, it was just about giving it that 100%. And what I found was I went into this type of music business where you control it. You send out an ad on Facebook and like, this is my music. This is what I want to do. If you like it, blah, blah, blah. And I built this huge, a few thousand, 5,000 people. And the idea is that if you can make $1 a month off of each person, well, you have 10,000 people, that's $10,000, right? So that's the business model. Problem is, my whole audience is like 80 or 70, and so they're all on a fixed income. So I had this, it was working great, and also the fans from the show that I did, I never took their compliments or that they really cared about then at the time. But man, the way they supported me now and came back and was like, loved you and were supporting, it was unbelievable. So it was great. And when I really realized that I'm not going to be able to make this, the business model works and people really like my music and it's helping them in their lives. And I've given it, and I'm ready to walk away, but I'm not walking away from it because what I wanted to do was this thing called keynote concerts where you give like a 15-minute story and then one of your original songs. And then like I talk about the transition from here to there, from fire department to home, and I'd sing that song, right? So, and the guy that I heard talk about this he's a songwriter, and he's like, hey, as a musician, you get paid $200 and a free lunch, as a keynote speaker, get $5,000 to $25,000 for that same hour. So like, oh, bingo, got a lot of stories to tell, and I'm a songwriter. So it took me several years, but after my mom died, she left me a little bit of money, and this Facebook ad popped up. If you want to write a TEDx talk, we're the people to help you. And so I bought into that, and yeah, for sure, I never ever would have been able to do what I did, or to get where I am here, and with actually having gotten 1 and 2 TEDx talks. So it's called Thought Leader. And they're fantastic, huge support.
Now that's quite, I'll call it a daunting task to actually get invited to go do them, correct?
Yeah.
Because I've had a couple of guests now who have done them, and they've had to travel quite a ways. I mean, it's a process. It's quite an accomplishment to have TEDx talk on your resume.
I think so, yeah. And that's why, and you don't get paid for it. You have to pay your way out there and everything. But I think it gives you authority on the subject. Like you said, it's what it does for you. If I'm trying to start out as a public speaker or keynote speaker, and they've got all these people they're looking at, and I've got 2 TEDx talks versus this other person, I mean, that's huge potentially. So it's so worth it. But also, even if nothing else comes out about this, I think that these talks are going to bring awareness, if nothing else, but also get people to start thinking and start making some changes and going, what are we doing to each other? Like, we got to be lifting each other up, man. We've all passed the tower, right? We've all proved that we can do this job. And I think this old way of thinking, we say, favorite motto is 100 years of tradition unimpeded by progress, and we're really proud of that. But I think things are starting to change, and people are waking up to. It's probably difficult when you're young, but as you've been on for a little while, you start to see, you start to be human. You have kids, you have family, you realize that there's more to it. You might not have that maturity when you're younger, but as you're getting older, you're starting to gain that maturity, hopefully. And then figuring out what to do with the retirement.
One of the things I started saying near the tail end of my career is it was very easy to throw rocks and stones at the millennials and now the Gen Z coming into these careers. But I'll tell you what, I honestly, wholeheartedly believe the millennials and the Gen Zs coming into these careers are going to make the best changes in these careers. We're already seeing it.
Yeah.
From old timers, when they first started coming in, it's like, just keep your mouth shut and do the work. Go do the job. But what they're doing is exactly what you and I are talking about. They're coming into these careers. They want to know the why. And really, there's nothing wrong with it. Because the analogy that I always use is, if you walked into a pre-shift briefing and the sergeant or whoever's standing up front and said, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, the old salt in the back, the first thing they're going to do is, why the F we doing that? The only difference now with the millennials and the Gen Z, they have the confidence at a year in to go, hey, boss, why are we doing that? They want to know the why. Nothing wrong with it. The other thing that they're doing, which is impacting these careers, if you drive them into the ground or if you make them feel like they're just a cog in a wheel, hey, F you. This career ain't for me. This career ain't gonna kill me. Yeah. I'll go work at Home Depot. I don't care where my paycheck comes from. Yeah. You could say that that's a lack of commitment to the career. You could also say that's a 100% commitment to the person themselves. That core that is going to be with them for the rest of their life. Just depends on your perspective.
Yeah, I think that for me, that's true. I think, I was blessed because my parents don't, there were no rules, and I'd forgotten that. I mean, I came from a world of no rules, breaking all the rules, to a world of rules. And so that was another change for me. And I wanted to. I love that. Like I said, with the football, having that structure and stuff is great. I love that. And the hierarchy of the superiors, you got your captain and it's running the thing and you've got your brothers and all.
It's the psychology experiment again. You were a kid who grew up with no rules, no structure, and structure and rules are what you were seeking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that goes back into that, the Jung, the Freud, whatever it is. What were you missing as a kid that you went looking for in a first responder career? But at the end of the day, and there's nothing wrong with this. It ultimately wasn't the career for you.
It was the career for me for the time that I did it, And I think that getting out and it's if you've lost purpose. And I talked to a kid, he was my son's friend. He's at the LAFD, and my son said, hey, he's struggling over there, and I'm like, so we talked, and he was fine. He loved his crew and everything, but he said he'd lost purpose, and I was like, really? Well, I felt that way too, because you're doing a job. Another thing about this is, I got this feeling like you're just a number, right? And this massive humanity coming at you day after day. There's no way you're ever going to solve it. You're not going to get to the end of that. There's no finish to it. It's just day after day after day of the same thing, of stopping the bleeding, of just holding the water back a little bit. So I could see how, and so he told me he's lost purpose. And he's brand new, maybe a year or two in. And it's really interesting to talk to him about that. But I could see how that happens because you just do it. Like, what is purpose? What is purpose? My dad, in Japan, the Okinawa, they call it the ikigai, to purpose, to have purpose in your life, the meaning, the reason to get up in the morning. And that can be, to go and help people every day. But it also, as a personal purpose, yes, it makes you feel good. When you're giving and you're serving, it makes you feel good. But I think there can be an element, a way that you can lose purpose in the job while you're doing it. It's not necessarily just when you quit the job and you start something else. But we were talking about jumping off and doing that.
Something that I want to say real quick on that the two words, purpose and purposeful. I've heard somebody said this to me recently, and it really hit home for me, because a lot of us, we get wrapped up in this. We get wrapped up in that mindset of, I need to have purpose. There's got to be my purpose, my shield, my honor, whatever it is. And the way it was explained to me is, stop chasing purpose. If you can't find your purpose, if your purpose isn't obvious, then be purposeful. Go into each day telling yourself that your purpose is to be the best you can for your environment. Make that your purpose. So make being purposeful more of what you're driving force.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting perspective.
No, I think it's great. And I've talked about that in terms of everyday tasks that we do, being purposeful with them. You can find purpose in things that you just take for granted, right? But I got to tell you a funny thing. I was, I don't know, a few years before my mom died, she wasn't talking a whole lot. And, but I'd talk, and I was talking around. I'm like, I got to find purpose. I got to get a job, and I got to do all this stuff. And this is kind of like maybe 4 years ago. So I'd quit. I left the department, but I wasn't quite sure where I was going. And the music it was kind of at that point. I'm like, I got to find purpose. Got to find a job. And I'm going on and on, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. There's a long pause. She says, just do nothing. What do you mean, just do nothing? I got to do just do nothing. So I think she might have said that 3 times. I'm like, okay. She's like 91 years old, and she only has a few words, and this is what she's telling me. I need to explore that. What does she mean? What she meant was that I'm sitting there in bed, stressing myself out. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting in bed. But I'm so stressed out. I'm so, I've put myself in this full-on sympathetic state, fight or flight state. And what she was saying was that you're sitting in bed doing nothing. So just do that. Don't add all this shoulda, coulda, need to, all this other stuff. That'll happen. It'll come. You'll want to get out of bed one day. You'll want to. And eventually you do, and then you take that first step, you take another one, you find yourself over here, and then you find, it just stop and listen and let go. And like I'm saying, what I've seen for the universe or God, whatever this thing is, it's like, it feels a whole lot like a plan for my life. It's starting to make sense. And maybe I feel like I have more purpose than I've ever had, so.
Other than prepping for this next TED Talk, do you have any other public speaking engagements scheduled?
No, but I'm kind of at a little bit of I'm waiting for this one to come out and the other one. And I really I've made it my goal to not work for somebody else ever again in my life. I want to be sitting on a beach, writing my speech, emailing or whatever, writing, and get paid a bunch of money for it. That's what I'd like to be doing.
That sounds like a horrible plan.
And then flying off to Vienna to go give the speech, I mean, I want to do that kind of stuff. That's the life I'd like to have. So, I've kind of, I took some money that I had put in to my pension. So,
when you're making a garbage ton of money, hire me as an assistant.
Yeah,
I'll make sure the sand around you is raked so you're at your perfect zen.
Yeah, so I'm trying to. I have a little bit of money left, and I'm deciding whether to put it into this guys that can kind of help me take what I have now and actually take this as a speaking career, as a business, and so it's kind of I've been putting it all on red, but I'm going to let them know Friday. And so I forgot what your last question is, but I want to make this into a speaking business. And I think that this can go through, because what we're talking about can also be true in corporate teams, in every collective group of people that's somewhat exclusive, right? Sales, I've seen it. I don't do any of that stuff, but I've heard that when I tell people, yeah, this stuff exists in my job too. So I want to make this for all. I was just talking to my sister on the way down here. She's like, who is this talk for? I said, really, it's for anybody from 6 years old to 90, you know, that is involved in this type of dynamics. At least that's what this talk is for, the dynamics of it. So I want to be able to get that next talk, even if it's a low paying one, just so I can make my nut and build up my career. And no, I don't have anything scheduled after that, but that's my plan. Not sure exactly how I'm going to go about it, but that's what I want to do.
Do you have an oddly sounding thing? Do you have a TEDx mentor? And what I mean by that is the history of TEDx talks one of those things that they kind of almost have a snowball effect? So as you keep doing more, the opportunities to then speak become more prevalent?
I think just one TEDx talk would do it, you know, 2 sounds better. But I think TEDx, if you want to get into public speaking, that can be, it's like being a paramedic before you get into the fire department. You know, you have that extra, whatever, shine.
Right. What is the grind? It's not just a routine, but the decision we make to wake up, give everything we've got, then find a way to go further. Grind, spelt GRND, is more than a brand. It's a movement, an emotion we all feel connected to as we work daily to pursue our goals and support each other. Founded by a former Army Ranger, Grind Activewear has a clear mission: to give 100% and then some more. In sport, fitness, and in life. Functional, high-quality performance wear that's rooted in American culture. Because you demand gear that outworks the rest. Whether you're on the field, in the gym, or building your own lane, Grind is for those who refuse to settle. Go check out the Grind Collective, that's the grndcollective.com, and tap into something bigger than clothing. And while you're there, use the promo code TRANSITION15 to get 15% off your purchase.
But TEDx is, they're all, TED Talks is the parent kind of organization. And these are like, TEDx Talks are like franchises, right? So you could be a college or a library or whatever, you have a little venue, you want to do it. They say, yeah, okay, you can do it. Here's the rules and blah, blah, blah. So each one's different. So you have to apply to each one separately.
Oh, okay.
So usually they say like 88 is the average number that people get them. But I know people that have had 180 applications. I think I did something like 75 or maybe 100. I don't know. But as I was getting my message, because I wasn't going to talk about this stuff at all. I never, ever intended to, you know? So I was like, oh, okay, the how? And so my God, what I've gone through, the therapy, my own therapy, going through this as I'm having to dig in and pull out all this stuff, go back. It's just been an incredible journey for me, an emotional and mental and, you know, all this stuff, and talking to people that I came up with, you know, where are you at now? Some of them are doing great. Others are, like I said, they're like, you know, I'm good. You know, I've got what I need to do. And I'm like, okay, bro, I'm not going to rock your boat. You know, they're not ready for the kind of information that we're talking about. They're stuck in that muscle through and get through it. And I agree with a lot of that too, but there's this other side that we really need to take care of.
Is there a part of you that still stays with music and the writing songs and being creative that way?
Yeah. And I think that will be integrated into my writing, into the speaking, hopefully be part of my life. And I'm actually becoming a better musician. What I mean by that is more myself, you know, more organic to myself. And I heard a singer once say, you have to love your voice. I'm like, I don't love my voice. I love singing, but I don't love my voice.
There's none of us that hear ourselves back after recording going, wow, I sound amazing.
Yeah. Well, it may not be recording, but as I'm playing now, I'm starting to find that and to find my own voice, and not, you know, you go through all trying to be like this person or that person. But if you watch American Idol, any of this stuff, it's that one person that's themselves, just simply themselves, not trying to do anything that blows everybody's minds and of winning the whole thing, you know? So I didn't know who I was for, you know, I'm still trying to figure out, and, you know, but each day is more and more and coming into myself And I'm so grateful to be here and be able to do that. God, there was something else you brought up. We didn't quite finish. Oh, you asked me, did I have a mentor in the coaching?
Well, I said specifically related to the TEDx.
Yeah, specifically, I bought into that course or program, right? So they have coaches in there. They teach you they give you this whole application, how to get ready to do so you have all the questions kind of answered and you're ready. You just kind of plug and paste on each application. And then they have talk practice and the coaches that help you with that. And hell no, could not have ever. In fact, I remember early on, I was in one of the coaching things, and you've got people that have been therapists for 30 years and they have 4 books out, and this person's a PhD and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any of that. I have a high school graduation. I have nothing to show. She's like, are you kidding me? You have more than everybody here. You've saved hundreds of lives. And I'm like, yeah, but that was just my job, like I haven't really done anything impressive like that. So that was the first time somebody said to me that what I did mattered in a way that I went, oh. And then in the course of all this stuff, some of the stories that I would use to buttress my point in my other talks that I was doing, they would hear those stories and they're just like, that is the thing that you need to be talking about.
I'm going to say something that is selfish, rude, probably a bit off center. They're never going to throw a parade for a bunch of PhDs. They'll throw parades all day and twice on Sundays for firefighters, right, police officers, military, because we do the stuff that the average person doesn't want to do or can't do. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, to validate what that woman told you, great, you got a PhD. Show me the last time somebody stood in line for a parade for a bunch of PhDs walking down the street.
Yeah, it never occurred to me, to see it that way. I was just like, I think I'm in the wrong place. I felt so that I was so underqualified to be here, and it took me a long time to wrap my head around that. So yeah, I've got a lot of help, and I honestly, hands down, 100%, no way would I have gotten these talks had I not had this type of coaching and stuff. And I also have, through that, they did this pitch day where you do a 3-minute pitch, and if you do that, then you can get on podcasts and things, or if you do really well, they'll invite you to speak at their. It's kind of like TEDx talks, but it's called
the minor leagues talks. Or something.
Well, it's their own thing, sort of like that. So I got it. I got a 7-minute talk, one of those things, and that was in Toronto. My first TEDx talk was in Nova Scotia, Halifax. The next one's in Walden Pond in Boston. So, you travel for these things, but I did get paid for that one, so I'm officially a paid public speaker.
The one thing I have learned is that when they tell you, hey, it's a 10-minute speach, it's 10 minutes. Yeah. It's not 11. Yeah. It's not, and it's not 4. Yeah. It's 10.
Yeah. I had they gave me 14 minutes for the TEDx. I think mine was 13:58. So, or very close to right there. And I mean, every word I had etched out of, every single word that I used in that had been. And every time I wanted to go touch one of the bows I'm working on or something, or nope, go back to the talk, get that transition right, get this thing. And I put in the work, and it, when you put in that kind of work and you don't let up. And every moment when I was in Halifax is all about that 14 minutes and being very selfish with my time and what I'm doing. So I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of it for all of us. I hope that it can represent us in a good way and shed some light on some of the things that need changing, and save some lives and make people's lives better in the jobs that they have right now. That's really my goal with all that kind of stuff. So you told me to make sure we talked about the retreat, the 2 police officers, I believe you said. Yeah. So Brian Buss and Anthony Pantoja, Anthony reached out to me through my music website. And so I'm like, I couldn't really figure out what it was. I don't know. He's like, I want you to talk to you about this stuff. And then we didn't talk because I want you to meet my partner, Brian. It's like, okay. So I finally got on the phone with Brian and we talked for maybe 12 minutes, maybe 15. And we just hit it off. Like, I love this guy. He's a retired cop. Both of them are retired cops. They both had issues, shootings that went sideways and, department, all this stuff, and really spiraled down to the point of suicide. And they're both survivors of that and have lost many, many, and are losing more every day. So I talked to Brian and he's like, well, yeah, I'm starting this retreat for first responders to deal with trauma and stuff like that. It's 102 acres outside of Livermore, California. There's a herd of 10 wild Mustangs running around there. There's ponds. It goes all the way up on the hill. This is a gorgeous place. So he said, we had to get off, and he said, well, hey, tomorrow I'm having the first meeting of the founding members that want to be founding members. I'd love for you to be part of it. Like, man, I'm on my way. So I grabbed my sound healing stuff and I went up there. And the first night, we had a nice little dinner, and then we were sitting around the fire pit, passing bottle of whiskey around. I don't really drink whiskey, but, when in Rome. And I think Anthony got up and he talked about his shooting and what had happened to him and the descent down from there. What he went through with all that. And then the next guy got up and the next one, and the little tiny girl cop, and the courage and the heart that these people had. I've just stood there in awe of their courage to be even talking about this. I'm like, there's other people out here. What? So that opened my eyes. This is it right here, Runestone Ranch. Told them they needed to get something like this. Well, this is the one they got. So I've been working with them, and they're doing amazing things. They're getting a lot of support. They're going to be building 12 different cabins, so they can you can have whatever your troop, probably 2 to a cabin, but I think we're going to be working it. So if it's cops, it's cops with cops, firemen, because like you and I were saying, we're not going to have the same stories. When it's more cops there, I feel like the outsider because we're not having firefighters, and I can't relate. I cannot relate to what you guys are talking about. Same thing with you. You're not going to relate what I'm talking about. So they're doing some fantastic work. They're great guys, and so is Brian's wife, Jonlyn, and I want to let people know about it because, just going up there for the weekend or whatever, it's life-changing. And what's life-changing too is the love from, like, when you hug this guy, Brian, it's like, you just feel love, man. Body is filled with it. He's like Jesus or something. He just puts it into you, So what they're doing and the heart that they have and what they're giving back, I hope everybody that is suffering or just wants to have a better life, and talk to people and talking about purpose and talking about the future, talking about retirement and all that stuff. That's what we need to do, be talking to each other. That's our solution. We are the solution to the stuff that's going on. If we can do that, be first responders for each other.
I agree 100%. The only thing I would add to that is we need to get better at talking to our families too. I think too many of us spend our careers in a, maybe to us, what we think is a noble way, but we try to shield our family from what these careers do to us. And granted, I am not saying come home and tell your spouse and your kids about the horrificness, but you need to let them in and let them know what your career entails and what it's doing to you.
Wow. I asked my son, I've heard, that people come home and they're, kicking the dog and yelling at their kids. And I'm like, did I do that? He's like, no, never. He goes, you never brought work home with you. And I have a little 10-year-old right now.
Did you not bring it home with you, or did you just make sure that you were really good about shielding them from your work?
Yeah, I didn't tell them the stuff that I've come home just so angry or so whatever, just carrying it, and I didn't want to put that on them. But yeah, you can't keep taking this stuff. It does cause these diseases. And I'm not getting sick like that, man. I'm not keeping that shit in my body. But one of the things for sure is find ways to get this stuff out, whether it's talking. One of the best ways is talking to another first responder, because they know what you're talking about. Even if it's a cop, nothing.
Hey,
but for you, even if it's a fireman, because we have a level here. But if you want to go deeper than that, you need to talk to a cop that knows what you're talking about, because I can't go there with you. I don't know what that's like. But we do know, we respond to the same incidences in different ways. We're coming from two different angles. So
that was the one thing I was just going to joke about. I've been on some calls. The last thing you want to do is piss off a firefighter, because they want to fight more than cops do.
Every time we're taking somebody down, I turn around, I see the freaking cops standing there. I'm like, you want to help us out? They're like, yeah, you're doing fine,
The only one better. I still say that, to me, the only one better. Take somebody in to get a blood draw at the hospital, and they start mouthing off to the nurse.
Right.
It's like, why would you piss off somebody who can legally stick needles in you?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, this thing about what we carry, and it's really I don't know how much time we still have, but the psychedelics, people that are using psychedelics to, I saw one of your other podcasts, and I was, this woman was using ibogaine, which it's kind of like ayahuasca. It's an African ayahuasca, really deep, hallucinogenic. I did it one time, like I was telling you. I heard that it help you get off pain pills, and I was just like, I went back to work. I'm like, what the hell's happening to my body? And never had time. So anyway, I tried that, and it was incredible what was revealed to me later. But what I found out about psychedelics is, because what I was shown in that, I don't know, that night, was the truth about now that I put everything together, my spiritual belief. Several years after that, met this neighbor who, we talked. He said, because he was a Hindu or something, and I was like, really wanted to know about his stuff. He gave me these two books. One was called Living in a Mindful Universe. It's written by the guy it's like a brain surgeon. He gets this meningitis that destroys his whole brain. It's unheard of to get that as an adult, and he's not going to wake up from this coma 100%. And if he did, he'd be a vegetable. Makes full recovery, miracle. Everything's a miracle about this thing. But according to him, he could absolutely not, with everything he knew, everything been educated, that he had a near-death experience during this coma, and everything he knew that is impossible, right? It's black, and then you wake up. It's nothing, and then you wake up. Yet this was so powerful and so clear to him that it happened. And so this whole book is about how could this be possible, right? So one of the things that he investigates is the psychedelics. And when they investigate the ECG and they plug the brain in and they expect it to light up everywhere, right? Well, it goes dormant. There's like 2 blips. That's it. And what they surmise from that is that our neocortex, part of it makes us human, in the conscious thought, but it's also like a filter from the higher knowledge. And when he described his near-death experience, and I thought about that ibogaine night and the things that I was shown, I went, oh my God, that's true, because I have knowledge now that you can't get just living without ever I think it's like God's way. It's what he gave us to communicate with him. And as I've looked into magic mushrooms, especially, the ancient Egyptians used them. They used that and frequency to communicate with the gods, to open that portal. So, and I think that, the stuff that they're doing with the MDMA, it basically shuts off the fear control center. So when you're in the sound meditation and you're going through this and this trauma comes up, it allows it to come up. And then you may be going through all kinds of weird body stuff and all, but once that settles down, that trauma's gone. It's not, I mean, you can think about it now, but you don't have that same physiological response of your heart beating faster and the sweating or whatever it is that your body, because that's what happens. We have that groove that just, so these are really powerful medicine that it's from the earth, and you can get into the whole drugs versus medicine, but I mean, a lot of the pills we're taking now should be outlawed. Who decides what's a drug and what's a medicine? So there's a lot to be gained, and everyone should pick their own path and lean forward. But opening our minds to things that, in different ways, it's important, man. This life's an exploration, and it's a journey. This life is a journey, and it's a ride. That's what I've seen, and we existed before this, and we're going to exist long after this. And we'll probably be coming back here to learn more lessons that we didn't figure out in this lifetime. So
my stance on it is that, and I've had multiple guests now who have done the psychedelic therapies, from the ibogaine, the mushrooms, the ayahuasca. My thing is that there's enough evidence, people talking about the benefit, especially to those coming from the veteran and first responder communities. My thing is that I want to give people the opportunity to talk about their experience with it, because I do believe that there are quite a few people out there still that have reservations, have apprehension, have a fear of doing it. So the more stories that they hear might help with that. The other thing, it goes back to like when we first started talking. It doesn't mean that I am endorsing it or supporting it. It just means that I am open to saying, if it works for somebody, we need to reduce the barriers for them to get to that treatment. Yeah. It shouldn't be up to you or I to decide if somebody can do it or not. That's my stance on it, is that I feel that a lot of people, and I say this routinely, a lot of the people making the rules in government are still a product of the 60s, and they have that negative connotation of what psychedelics are and do. We need to break that stigma. We need to get past the fact of what you experienced and realize that there are some men and women that are utilizing this and finding significant benefit from it.
Life-saving benefit.
So let's get rid of the barriers and allow them to, and allow the people who are maybe on the fence about it, get them easier access to it. Mm-hmm. That's my only purpose for giving anybody the opportunity who's done the treatment to tell their story with it.
I also think this is not for everybody. This is, if you're ready, you need to be a warrior, man. This is not for pussies. You because you're gonna face yourself, and it really, I've heard about it's an inner journey. This is all an inner journey. It's not out there. It's in you. And it's very, very personal, and it's connected to a higher power. No question. And I've watched, because I do this sound ceremony with the whole thing and for other people, and you'll watch this trauma leave a person's body. You watch it happen. It is, and I've felt it in myself too, but it's phenomenal. This frequency. Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, energy, and basically frequency, vibration, and frequency, right? And everything comes down to frequency. So when I play the gong, I'm playing a whole array of frequencies. It's overtonal. So, and whatever, I'm convinced of this. I don't have any scientific proof it to buy, but what I've seen happen is when I play these different music, this trauma that we carry, it's a thing. It's a physical thing. And it's in us somewhere, right? And it has a certain frequency. Everything has a frequency. So when let's say the gong is played, this one frequency meets that specific frequency and it stimulates it. And like you'll see the body start to like move in different ways or just start shaking. And or tensed up like this, like they're just holding on for 15 minutes, 45 minutes, however long it is, till finally they start to just, unclench, relax, and they're still playing the same frequency. But whatever that was is gone now. And so it's not for everybody, but it is something that is so profoundly healing like that. Like next day, you're a different person. So yeah, I urge everybody to open your mind to it. See what it is, what it can do, what your problem is, where you want to get to, and this can be the thing that can help you. And if you like I said, it takes a warrior spirit to do this. This is not for everybody, only because you're really facing yourself. And a lot of us aren't. A lot of us first responders have been taught not to do that. And, so this is a big ask, but I want people to heal. I want people to feel good and hopeful, and that especially those of us who've given our whole lives to, helping other people. It's not, you should have a good life, man. You should feel great. You shouldn't get sick from cancer because you're carrying all this shit in you, That's where I'm at, so.
Well, I appreciate your time. I wish you all the best going forward. I wish you the best on your speeches, and hopefully it grows into a lot more for you. So thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.